What if your wedges could give you more spin around the green for those trickier shots that we get faced with out on the golf course? Well, Cleveland have just launched the brand new lineup of the RTZ2 Wedges. There's a ton of options to look at. Lots of different bounce options, grind options, finishes on the head, really suited to different types of golfers and their delivery into the golf ball. But it begs the question, which wedge and what type of wedge is right for your game? We're going to get you that understanding today in this video. If you're looking for a golf club that feels premium without the premium price tag, you need to check out GX Golf. These gloves are made from premium cabretta leather, so they're incredibly soft, comfortable, and give you that really premium feel and grip throughout your round. You'll get an exceptional quality without paying big brand prices. And if you want to give them a try, use my code Michael10 at checkout and you'll get 10% discount off your order. Make sure you check out the bundle deals for extra discount plus my 10%. GX Golf, premium feel, exceptional value. Okay, so RTZ2 from Cleveland, and first impressions, when you look at these from the back, and tell me if you disagree with this, but they look phenomenal. Beautiful, clean look, just that little bit of subtle logo in there. That sort of brushed satin sort of finish, they look incredible to me in terms of the look from the back of the golf club. And again, in that playing position, we've got a really nice sort of shape. Now, Cleveland makes some great wedges. They've got a fantastic history of wedges. Roger Cleveland has come back and started to help design these with the engineers, and there's a lot of options to sort of run through, which we'll do in this particular video. Now, for me, with all these grinds and bounces and lofts and finishes, the options nowadays are pretty mind-blowing, especially for maybe you guys as golfers looking in and looking, well, which wedge is right? What's right for me? And it can be very, very confusing. So we're going to run through the differences of the grinds in this video. But initially on the looks, as we say, fantastic. We've got that Z alloy material here, which is exclusive to Cleveland, which gives that really sort of soft feel off the club face. We definitely sort of feel that as I've done some testing out, and I'm going to show you some images here, just out the bunker, off the grass, playing some low ones, playing some high ones, playing around with these different bounce and grind options really makes a big difference. But the feel off the club face is phenomenal. We look at the club face itself and we see some aggressive sort of milling on the club face here, you know, so those sort of zip grooves that we're going to see makes obviously trying to get that friction as high as we possibly can on that golf ball to create as much spin as we possibly can for that ultimate control. Also, there's a lot of work being done in the hosel. So obviously what we tend to see with a wedge is quite a long hosel, and that's there for a reason, but then they're going to take some weight out of that hosel as well, because generally with a larger hosel, it just pulls the CG location a little bit more towards the heel. They take some out from inside and reposition that to bring that CG location much more precisely in the center of the club. That's going to help with consistency of that launch and spin and ultimately that control. We've got the Hydra Zip finish on this, which ultimately is really helping to get more control in wet conditions. We know when we get sort of damp on the golf club between club face and golf ball, you know, wet conditions, it creates a more of a slide. So this is helping to sort of disperse that water and get that, or keep that friction up for that spin in those wetter conditions. And then we've got Ulti-Zip. Okay, so it's all about zips here. So Ulti-Zip is basically the sharper grooves. Okay, they're trying to get those edges of those grooves as sharp as they possibly can, again, to get that grip on that golf ball and create that spin. So Cleveland traditionally have always categorized their bounces and soles in terms of a low, mid and full. So it sometimes keeps things a little bit easier, but there is some additional grinds here which we're going to talk a little bit about. So basically that full grind is where you're going to see very little relief on the sole. So it's more of a square, a parallel sole, fuller sole, a little bit more bounce there for players who maybe play for more softer conditions and maybe take bigger divots. That's going to help you to get that club coming back out of that ground for those slightly steeper attacks with that slightly fuller sole. Midsole is then a little bit more versatile, probably quite a popular one for a lot of golfers. Maybe if you're playing on different types of course conditions around the year, you might just want that a little bit of versatility, and that's where the mid sole is going to give you that. So what you'll notice here, we've got a little bit of heel and toe and that trail edge relief on the bottom of that sole. And then we've got the low bounce. So this is where you get those bounces around that sort of 6-degree mark. So maybe for players who are very shallow into their attack, don't really take much of a divot, maybe play on firmer golf courses like links, for instance, you're going to get those tight lies where you want to get that leading edge a little bit tighter to the ground. Then we see a lot more heel relief, toe relief, and back edge relief with a lower bounce number. Maybe if you're a golfer as well who likes to open up the club face a little bit more, obviously with that heel and toe relief, you can do that without that leading edge jumping up too far away from the ground. And then Cleveland have introduced two speciality grinds, the 588 and the Adapt. Now, the 588 is like a bit more of a fuller sole there, but with a low bounce around that 8-degree mark. The toe has a little bit more bounce and the heel has a little bit less, so a little bit more versatility. Maybe that player just wants to open it up, but likes to see a little bit more of a fuller sole profile. And then the Adapt profile basically is, again, a low bounce option in that 8-degree, but a lot more heel and toe relief on the sole of the club. So again, for that player who wants to really open that blade up, play some square shots, but also open it up a little bit more, you've got that real versatility. Now the Adapt one comes with a full face grooves, which are quite popular with a lot of golfers. So if you are opening that blade up a lot, maybe that fluffier line, you're working the club across it a little bit more, sometimes you're going to get some strikes a little bit higher up in that toe section. So those fuller grooves might just help you to grab that extra spin when you're playing those certain extreme speciality shots. And then finally, if you still want some more options and choices, because there's a lot there already, you then got a finish that you can choose from, 3 finishes. So we've got this beautiful satin chrome finish there, which I think looks absolutely stunning. That's probably going to be the most popular option, I would probably say. But then they also offer that black head version, as well as then the Torak. The Torak is basically hasn't got that chrome plating on it, so basically it's going to rust and weather, so it's going to lose its sort of new look in a way. It might go rusty, which not everybody likes, but very popular on tour there, just for that non-glare look. So when you start looking at the specs in terms of loft options, these wedges are going to run from 46 degrees all the way through to 64 degrees every 2 degrees. So there's a lot of options in there. So really depending on what your longest iron is going to be, so whether you're going to play into that 9-iron and then move into something like this in that pitching wedge, gap, sand, lob, potentially, or whatever wedge structure that you've got built into your golf game, we've got every option there to sort of build it into your set. Now, the only thing I would say a little bit, thinking about these are essentially a pure blade iron. So if you play a little bit more of a game improvement iron, and then you maybe put a pitching wedge loft, that 46 in with one of these, it might be a little bit of a struggle. You're going to see some gapping issues, I would say, because you're going to go from that game improvement, powerful iron of, let's say, a 9-iron, and then you're going to go into a pitching wedge in a blade. You're going to get some different ball speed off that club face. You're going to get some different gap in there. So I would always sort of say, if you're in game improvement irons, you know, the cavity backs, I would put something more like a cavity back irons. Cleveland do them in that, maybe that pitching wedge, maybe that gap wedge, and then maybe move into sand iron and lob wedge more in these sort of types of wedges in a way. A bit more specialised where you get in and around the green, where you want that little bit of that control, where it's not a full swing club. That's where I think these really play into themselves. So just be careful when you're choosing your wedges not to go maybe all the way through to that pitch gap in the blade, depending on what you do with the irons. Again, it is a little bit of a personal choice. Always go and get fitted for me, because you can test your delivery for which grind and bounce is best suited to you. Try them on grass as well, as I've sort of done as well. Out the bunkers, try and test it everywhere when you go and try these wedges in a wedge fitting environment. Okay, post comments down below. Let me know your thoughts on the brand new Cleveland RTZ2 wedges. They look phenomenal and they do feel great off the club face. Post comments down below. Let me know your thoughts. Hopefully we'll catch up with you all very soon.